Cool.
What you got?
Yay, nice to see the lady here to learn how to build muscle. Alright, so for anyone that hasn't filled out the body type quiz, maybe Susan can pass them around. So the body type quiz, which is what you guys have been filling out, is, you notice how it's asking you a whole bunch of different symptoms. So all of those symptoms, when you accumulate them all together, will let you know what your main underlying hormone imbalance is. Okay, so does anyone know what a hormone does? Anyone have any idea at all? Okay, so when we communicate to each other, we use language, and hormones are the language of the body. Okay, so every single function that happens is being told to happen by a hormone. So when they are not functioning awesome, then we get side effects, and one of those side effects is fat storage, which is for my next talk. But for this talk, the problem is when you're trying to grow muscle and you are producing one particular hormone. Does anyone know what it's called? Does anyone have any idea? It's a stress hormone. It's called cortisol. Okay, so that's predominantly what we're going to be talking about today, how to produce way less of that. All right, so it's important that you understand this particular hormone because it will make your training much more efficient. All right, who here likes the idea of working smarter but not harder? Okay, who's prepared to work harder if they didn't have to work so often? Yeah? Does anyone here like the idea of working hard and frequently? Does anyone like the idea of that? Hands up if you like that idea. All right, so working hard and often. Hands up if you like the idea of working really hard but not so often. Okay, which side do you reckon has the most benefits? Real hard but not so often, or working hard and real frequent? Which side has the most benefits? This side? Put your hand up because I can't hear any of you. All right, what about this side? Okay, it's this side. Okay, when it comes to muscle building, it is definitely this side. Okay, it slightly has a different variable when you're wanting to lose body fat, but when it comes to muscle growth, this side is where it's at. Okay, and I'm talking just slightly different. Now, I like to brand myself as a health coach. I've been in nutrition for a very long time. 6 years I've been helping people achieve their ideal body. I work with a lot of women, but the guys that I have worked with have specifically wanted to grow muscle, so you guys are in the right place. If you have tried to set a goal before where you want to grow muscle and you want to lose body fat, one can be a side effect of the other, but if you can focus your attention onto the one goal as your priority and then change your focus to the secondary goal, you will get far better results. Okay, now I'm not saying that you can't achieve one without the other, you can, but what I have seen work most effectively is focusing on your one goal first and then the second goal as a separate goal. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to cover here today. The purpose of exercise, all right, because obviously exercise has a pretty crucial role in muscle growth, so we're going to get real clear on what the purpose of it is in terms of muscle growth. Also, when does growth occur? And then we're going to talk about growth and recovery hormones, because these hormones must be high in order for you to be able to have the muscle repair and therefore grow muscle. Okay, and then once we've gone through these things, then at the end I'm going to give you some strategies that you can start to implement straight away that you can start to do straight away using this information. Okay, so first of all, the purpose of exercise. So does anyone have any idea what the purpose of exercise is when it comes to increasing muscle growth? Any idea at all? Okay, so when you come to the gym, all right, and you are, tell me that you all are lifting weights. Excellent. Okay, so when you come to the gym and you're lifting weights, what do you think is the purpose of lifting the weights? What do you think you are doing at that moment physically?
Tearing muscle fiber?
Tearing muscle fiber. Okay, so the purpose of exercise is to tear muscle fiber, but even more specifically than that, it's to cause stress. Okay, so the role of exercise is to cause stress to your body. Now the key thing is that You want to produce just enough stress to cause injury, but not too much stress that you have too much of the stress hormone cortisol floating around the body. When that happens, your body will become catabolic, okay, and it will eat away at the muscle that you are trying to grow. All right, so it's really important that you are on board with this plan, okay, on board with the plan of stressing the body but not too much. So one more question I'm going to add in there: how much is too much? Okay, does anyone have any idea as to what some examples would be of training too much?
Is it dependent on how much recovery time you have, or like all your other factors? Like if that's all you're worried about and that's all you're doing, and you've got all the recovery time, all the right nutrition, all of that in the world, you could train more frequently than someone that doesn't have that.
Well, that's kind of like an athlete scenario. Okay, so an athlete scenario, when I've worked with professional athletes, their biggest problem is recovery. Okay, why do you think that is?
Allows time to repair the muscle.
Yeah, there's really not enough time to repair the muscle. You know, a professional athlete trains for way too many hours in the day, and they don't get enough time to recover. And the gains come in recovery. Okay, if you are exercising not for muscle growth, but you are exercising perhaps for performance, so in terms of speed or endurance, that's a different story. You do need to get in that time, and recovery is still important, but certainly when it comes to muscle growth, repair and recovery and rest is everything. Okay, that's where all the work is actually done. So some things that you could be doing that are compromising that are training too frequently. Okay, so training too frequently, too many days in a row, will not leave you enough time to actually reap the benefits of the stress that you have caused to your body and to the specific area of muscle that you have torn. Okay, so for example, how many of you are doing split days? How many of you are training different body parts on different days? Okay, so what do you think the benefit is of training different body parts on a different day?
Allows one part to recover while you're training that part.
Okay, and so have any of you ever trained when you have still been experiencing muscle soreness? So for example, you've got back and bis on one day, right, and then the next day you got chest and tris, but you're still a little bit sore. Do you still train chest and tris? You do? Okay, and so what will happen if you train on a body part that is already sore?
Becomes overly stressed.
It becomes overly stressed. Now, you may not be isolating that particular part of the body, but it is quite difficult to isolate only the triceps when other body parts are sore. Okay, it is quite difficult because it's such an isolated area. So it's really important that if you have trained really hard on one body part and the next day you are doing another area but it's still in the upper body and you're still feeling sore, what would be an alternative? Yeah, just stay away from the upper body until it has recovered. Okay, so you may want to look at changing your split. So when does growth occur? Stop giving them all the answers. You're the BT. All right, so who didn't know that that's when growth occurs? Hands up if you did not know. Okay, the benefits happen when you sleep. How many of you think that there is any growth actually happening during the training session? No? All the benefits are happening post exercise. Okay, so in the recovery. Now during the day when you are so for example, if you train for an hour or an hour 15, then you're basically doing everything you can to tear muscle fibers, right, to cause stress. And then later on during the day, your body is going to be much more efficient at calorie burning. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you feed the muscles and feed the body with what it needs. Otherwise, it's going to start eating away at your muscle. All right, so we're going to get into that as one strategy. But you've also got to make sure that you really are utilizing the rest time to eat. Okay, rest time is for eating and sleeping. And in between, maybe you can do some work. Okay, but rest time is for eating and sleeping when it comes to muscle growth. You can literally outdo your growth by simply not eating enough. Alright, so if you come to the gym and you're dedicated to spending an hour or over an hour to tearing muscle fibers to get those gains, and then you don't eat enough, where do you think your body gets where do you think your body is getting its fuel from if it's not getting it from your food to repair the muscle? Your muscle, not your fat. Ideally, it would be your fat, but for most people, it is your actual muscle. Okay, in some cases, it would be your actual body fat, but the conditions have to be pretty good, have to be pretty right for the body to start to access fat stores instead of breaking down your muscle. Alright, so it's super important that you make sure that you are getting enough rest. Now, if cortisol levels are too high, how do you think that might affect your rest? Okay, so let me give you an example. When your cortisol levels are low enough, you will sleep through the night. Okay, so how many of you are waking up during the night? Okay, at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, perhaps getting up to pee. Right, this is one symptom of cortisol being too high. Okay, and if you are carrying a bit of excess belly fat around the midsection, then that is another symptom that cortisol is just a little bit too high. Okay, but sleep is most definitely one that is a common symptom of excess cortisol. What's supposed to happen is that when you wake up in the morning at like around 6 o'clock, you're supposed to wake up feeling real good, alright? And so when cortisol is being produced at just the right amount, then you will wake up feeling pretty good. It won't be such an effort. And then throughout the day, cortisol, having peaked at 6 a.m., is supposed to start making its decline lower and lower and lower until you get to the evening at around 10 o'clock when it should be at its lowest. If cortisol gets low enough, then its opposing hormone melatonin will start to kick in, and those conditions will allow you to sleep. Okay, and there in that sleep phase is where your body is doing its perfect recovery. That there is the maximum time for repair and for recovery. Okay, if you are overtraining, not eating enough, then those two are the most common conditions for cortisol to get too high, in which case you won't be sleeping very well, and as a byproduct of that you won't recover very well, therefore you're losing your gains. Okay, so growth and recovery hormones, there are 6 of them. So human growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor and glucagon, these are all triggered by intense exercise, who can guess what the other one is? It's what you eat.
Diet.
Yep. Do you know specifically? Protein. Okay. So these 3 things, not all 3 together, all right, are triggered and increased by intense exercise and protein. All right. Now the thing is that even though protein is a trigger, there is such a thing as eating too much protein. Okay, if you do consume too much protein at one time and you're not staggering it throughout the day, then you will trigger cortisol and insulin, which are both opposing hormones to these 3, actually opposing hormones to all 6, but more specifically these 3. Okay, so the thing with hormones is that when you produce more of one, you are producing less of the other. Alright, and so the one hormone that we specifically are wanting to avoid in this situation is cortisol. And so you want to make sure that you are watching the amount of protein that you are eating at one time and that you are staggering it through the day. Alright, so testosterone is, these 3, they also play the role in helping your blood sugar levels regulate when you're not eating. Okay, so if you do a good job of making sure that you eat frequently, then you produce less of the stress hormone, and as a byproduct, that too will also help manage your blood glucose levels. Now, if you do this well, alright, to the degree that you do the eating frequently well, and if the quality of what you're eating is also good, to the degree you do that, then when you're growing and putting on mass, you also won't put on fat. Okay? seen people grow and then also get fat? Yeah, so that's happening because they're doing the eating and the training, but then they're also producing way too much insulin, and that is going to trigger weight gain. Now this one here, testosterone, I mean, you guys are always going to be much more efficient at muscle building than females ever will, because you make lots of this hormone. Okay, so literally in terms of who's got the raw deal here, it's us girls. All right, but you guys will never be as pretty as us, no matter how hard you try. Yeah, adrenaline. Adrenaline is also triggered. It is a stress hormone, but when it's been triggered in good amounts, then it is also another anabolic hormone. Okay, so you want adrenaline to be high, but not too high. All right, exercise is a trigger for adrenaline. All right, and then the last one is thyroid, T3 and T4 hormones. Now these are responsible for your metabolism, so it's really important that you don't ruin the metabolism in the process of either losing body fat or, in this instance, gaining mass. All right, you can actually destroy the metabolism both ways. So when it comes to growing, if you are doing it in such a way where the quality of what you are eating is poor, therefore producing a lot of cortisol, or if you are growing in a way where you are not getting enough sleep, okay, so not getting enough downtime, then that's also going to trigger cortisol, and these hormones will be affected. And if you are also are not making sure that you are limiting the amount of protein consumption at one time, and if you are eating way too many refined or not very good quality carbohydrates, that's also going to trigger cortisol and will affect this hormone here too. Okay, so this hormone here is really responsible for your metabolism. You want it to stay good. You don't want it to, by the end of gaining and you put on some fat, be too slow, nor do you want it to go the other way when it's time to cut down. Okay, so this gland up here is where your thyroid is, and the reason why this one is so important is because it controls the speed of everything, not just your metabolism. Okay, so it's super important that you make sure that during the process you really do view it from as much of a holistic process as possible. All right, and that means making sure that you're eating a high nutrient diet, not just looking at your basic macros like your carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Also making sure that you're getting enough vegetables. Okay, I'd also recommend that you supplement with a multivitamin at least. There's just no way that with the amount of minerals that you sweat out in one exercise session that you could replace that with food. Okay, so that's what I'd recommend there. Now I'm going to go through some strategies that you guys can implement straight away. How often do you think that you need to be eating? Can anyone take a guess?
6 times every couple of hours.
Yeah. Yep, and yeah, it's about that. So every 2 to 3 hours, 3 hours max. Okay, that's the maximum amount of time that you want to leave between eating. Okay, so what happens, do you remember what happens when your blood sugar levels get too low? Alright, you produce what hormone? Cortisol. And so when you produce too much cortisol, what does your body eat? Your muscle. Yep. Okay. There are a bunch of things you could do, but I wanted to give you guys the ones that would give you the biggest bang for your buck. Okay, the other one was keep added sugars to a maximum of 6 teaspoons a day. Okay. Lots of people reckon that bulking or growing or putting on muscle is an excuse to eat crap. It's totally not. Okay, I'm done with cutting, and so because I'm done with that, now I'm going to bulk, which is just basically another word for saying it's an excuse to get fat and train. Okay, it's not. When you 6 teaspoons of sugar, does anyone know how many grams of sugar is in 1 teaspoon? 4. Okay, so we're looking at added sugars. So when you look on the back of a label and you see sugars per 100 grams or sugars per serving, 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon. Okay, so if you're going for the type of carbohydrates that are too refined, you're going to find that the sugar levels in there are too high. Okay, when you look at the complex carbohydrates, you'll find the carbohydrate content is high, but the sugars are low. Right?
Examples of complex.
Yep, so complex carbohydrates would be, well, what do you guys think they are? Yep, so sweet potato or kumara?
Brown rice.
Brown rice, yep.
Whole grain.
Anything whole grain, so quinoa, bulgur wheat. Have you guys eaten bulgur wheat before? You know tabbouleh, when you get a thing, a kebab. Yep. So the tabbouleh, that's bulgur wheat. Yep. All right. So anything like that that's complex, so not white and refined, is going to be low sugar but higher in carbohydrates. So you want to make sure that you don't exceed 6 teaspoons a day. All right. So the next one was post-exercise. All right. So post-exercise, which do you think is the most important thing to eat? Which macronutrient?
Protein.
Nope. So therefore it must be carbohydrate. Okay, so when you eat carbohydrate when you eat protein on its own, all right, you're not getting efficient delivery of the protein to the muscle. Okay, so when you are done training, your sensitivity to insulin is peaking. Okay, so what that means is that your body's efficiency to be able to deliver nutrients to the muscle is very high. All right, so in actual fact, the most important macronutrient to have post-training is carbohydrate. All right, you also want to have protein, but you want to make sure that your ratio is 2-to-1 carbohydrate minimum. Okay, and if you know that you've done a real good session, that you've trained really hard and your eating has been clean, okay, you've kept it clean, then an even better ratio still is 3-to-1. Okay, so how many of you are using protein shakes? Okay, so about how many grams of protein is a typical serve? Around about 20. Yep. So if you're getting 20 grams of protein per one serve, then what would be then would that mean to eat 3 times that of carbohydrate? So what would be a better idea? Correct. Okay, so lessen the protein. Okay, so immediately after exercise, you want to lessen the protein to half, and then add the carbohydrate. Fruit is okay, but what would be ideal is to have brown rice or like a meal, like a proper meal, but a small serving of protein. So does anyone know what the equivalent of 20 grams of protein looks like in terms of chicken? It's about a palm size. Okay, so half of that, which would be the equivalent of half of a scoop of protein, would be 10 grams. So that would literally just look like half a palm worth of chicken, okay, to about 3/4 or to a cup of rice. Okay, perhaps even a little bit more than that. Yeah, so then what you want to make sure that you're doing is increasing the protein, lessening the carbs over your next meals. Okay, so meal 1 is 3-to-1 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein, and then your next meal is 2-to-1, and then your next meal is 1-to-1, and then your last meal is no carb. Any questions around that? Depending on when you train is going to determine how much you drop off. Okay. Okay, and we already covered the last one, which was don't train if you're sore. Real simple, don't train if you're sore. Okay, the whole purpose of training was to cause stress, to get sore. If you're training and you're not sore, then you do need to go back the next day and try again. All right, and don't leave until you're sore. All right, and if it's delayed and you're sore the next day, no worries. But if you're finding that you're not sore, you're not growing. Okay, so make sure that you know the difference between strength training and training for growth, which is hypertrophy. So Susan's one of the trainers here, and are you the manager here as well?
Yeah, but as of next week there'll be another manager.
Okay.
Yes, Jamie and I.
Yeah, so hands up if you've used a PT before. Okay. What do you reckon are the main benefits of using a PT when you are training to grow muscle?
Correct form.
Yep, correct form is totally key. I actually reckon that correct form is the number one reason why everyone should have a personal trainer when they start and then at some point again. Alright, so whenever I've had personal trainers since I've started at the gym, but I have them for a period of time. Okay, what would be another reason to have a personal trainer when it comes to muscle growth?
Learning new, it's like new workouts to change it up.
What does changing it up do?
Shocks the muscles. Yeah. Suppose if you're
Yeah.
using one exercise over and over, your muscles get used to that.
Correct, and therefore you can't progress. Okay, so personal trainers are awesome for progression. All right, does anyone know about how many weeks it takes before you adapt to whatever it is that you're doing?
6 to 8.
6 to 8 weeks if you've just started training. Okay, but it's actually about 2 to 3. About 2 to 3 weeks and your body can become adapted. All right. If it's taking longer than that, then chances are is that you may not be working out hard enough or efficiently. Okay, or having enough rest time in between your training time. Okay, so I recommend that. I'm pretty sure that this gym does walkthroughs and program writing and so forth. I recommend that you do that regularly and also engage in a personal training session once a quarter. Okay, or at least once every three times a year. Okay, all right. So that's it for this topic. What would be one main takeaway that a couple of you have got? What would be one standout thing?
For me, it'd be eat during the day as opposed to big meal, weight, big meal, weight.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, definitely.
With that protein after eating, so what I usually do is I'll work out and I'll go back and then I'll have a protein shake, but no carbs, and then maybe like half an hour to an hour I'll have my meal. So you reckon it's better to go back up the meal?
Is your goal to grow? Is it to grow muscle?
I'm trying to lose weight. That's why.
Then you want to stick around for the next talk. remember
Decide what your priority is.
remember that you want to pick which is your priority. Okay, if your priority is to put on muscle, then you must eat straight away. Okay, if your goal is to lose body fat, then it depends on what kind of training that you're doing. Okay, but 9 times out of 10, regardless of the goal, it will be to eat. Just 8 times out of 10, regardless of the goal, will be to eat. But when your goal is to grow, you're eating. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the bit where you talked about carbohydrates post-workout. Were you saying they need to have...
Carbohydrate 3 to 1 to protein.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then to taper it off 1 to 1 as further away from training you get. Yeah.
What would you say a good night's sleep is? How many hours?
Well, it's more about quality than it is quantity. Okay, so you'll know that you're getting quality if you are sleeping through and you're waking up and you're feeling like you woke easily. Okay, and you didn't just kind of stumble and roll out of bed and eyes half glazed looking for the caffeine. All right, so that's a really good sign that you are not getting quality sleep. All right, but typically it's going to be about, let's say, you can get 6 hours of really quality. I'm a mum, so that's a proven fact. Yep, ideally 8 hours would be ideal, but it's more about quality than it is quantity. Any other questions?
What do you reckon the best way to lower cortisol is? So just the eating.
Eat every 2 to 3 hours. There are many. Stress management's a pretty big one, but in terms of the 3 that I thought would give you the biggest bang for your buck, those 3. Yeah. So eating every 2 to 3 hours. Don't have more than 6 teaspoons of sugar per day, and post-exercise make sure that you're carbohydrate to protein. Yeah.
Sugar like hard. Is there
Yeah.
any avoiding sugar full stop?
Is there any problem with that? Hell no. No, so long as you're not avoiding carbohydrates full stop, but sugars full stop, absolutely.
Carbohydrate does convert to
Yeah.
sugar,
Yeah.
but it's the rate at which it does.
Yeah. Cool. Yep.
The sugar and fruits.
There is. That's a good question. You want to don't have more than 3 pieces of fruit a day. Okay, and if it's not like a 1 unit, 1 apple, then 1 cup would be the equivalent of this. So a cup of blueberries would be the equivalent of 1 serve. Don't have more than 3 serves a day. Yeah. So you guys, the best way to keep in touch with me, and if you really if you're getting a lot out of this kind of information, I do this all week. Okay, so but not live, because that would kill me. Online. All right. So do you guys know of Periscope? Have you guys heard of Periscope? It's a Twitter. It's an app that Twitter made, and so every morning at 8 a.m. I do like a live feed, and I focus on one topic at a time. So for example, like this topic is what I did on Periscope last week on one of the mornings. All right, and they can be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long. So you could be listening on your way to work or while you're having breakfast, and it's every Monday to Thursday. All right, so when I reach 250 followers, then we're going to do Free Coaching Friday. So if you guys got some real good value today, then pop onto that. I also have a YouTube channel. So once a week on a Wednesday night, except for this Wednesday night because I'm doing another talk, but every other Wednesday night I do a seminar, but webinar style, so online. Okay, and it's like going into a topic like this, but using visual aids, and it's much more in depth. All right, and so I can be speaking on a topic for about half an hour to an hour, depending on the topic. And at the end, it's always giving you strategies to be able to implement what you've learned straight away. The one thing that I've learned about nutrition is that it's not about hearing one bit of information and then going, oh wow, that was really amazing. It's about hearing some information and then hearing it again and then hearing it again and then literally putting that into practice over and over and over. When it comes to nutrition, lots of things overlap and have similar solutions. Okay, so the more that you expose yourself to that information, the more that it will start to become, you heard practice makes perfect, practice makes permanent. Okay, so the more that you expose yourself to that information. So all of that is free, all right? And then we also do a nutrition course. It's a 12-week nutrition course. It's online, all right? So if you guys are finding that through all the free stuff that you're getting, that you're loving it, then you can engage with us in our nutrition course. Okay, so Taryn Thompson, YouTube, Periscope, Taryn Thompson, your virtual health coach. And then I have all your details now with the body type quiz. If you haven't put your email in there, put your email in there, and then what I'll do is just send you the link to our website, and once you've clicked on that, you'll have access to the Periscope, the webinar, and so forth. Okay? Alright, so we'll do the body fat one next, so if you're keen to hear about that, stick around. Yeah, cool.